Hello, my dear friends. Tomorrow will be 4 weeks from the infamous day of October 7th when Hamas invaded Israel and they murdered and tortured and burned and took hostages. And the war is still raging. The hostages are still under Hamas control in Gaza, around 242 hostages. They still haven't, just a few have been released who have been rescued, but they still haven't come home. The war is going on every day. More soldiers from Tzahal are dying. And my feeling is that we need to recognize that we are not doing enough. We need to try harder. So you say, what do you mean? What are we supposed to be doing? Well, we're not on the front lines. We are not being asked to be Meiser Nefesh. We do not, many of the people in the shul, their children are doing that. But we're sitting here comfortably in America. Our lives are not imminently in danger. But we have to do religiously. We have to do everything in the world. We have to try harder. If the war is not over, if the hostages are not yet released, if there are people dying every day, people being shot and killed and murdered, then we have to try harder. What does that mean? It means that we have to daven harder. It means that we have to learn more, and we have to give more tzedakah, more chesed. We have to have more achdus, more greater sense of unity with Klal Yisrael. Because if not, then it's on our shoulders. That we're responsible for not doing our part and our share in the effort to save the hostages and to save Klal Yisrael. There's an observation that I want to make on this week's parsha that's very relevant to what I just said. The Chumash says that when Avraham was sitting outside his tent, Vayisa einav vayar, he lifted up his eyes and he saw Vehine shlosha anashim nitzavim olav vayar vayaretz akrosam. He saw 3 people standing there, and he saw, and he went and he ran to them. So Rashi's troubled. Why does it say vayar twice? He saw them, and then he saw and he ran to them. So Rashi says that why does it say twice? Because the first time it's literal, that he saw them. And the second time, vayar means that he understood. He understood that the reason why they were standing there and not approaching him is because they didn't want to trouble him. So he realized that they didn't want to impose. So therefore, the second time it says vayar vayaretz. He saw them and he ran. I want to give it a little different twist, and that is that there's always 2 ways to see something. There's a vayar to see, which means you see it, it's there and you see it, but it has 0 impact on the person. And then there's a yar where the person, what you see touches you in your heart. It touches you in your soul. And Avram, his first vayar is he knew that there were people there, wonderful. But the second vayar was he understood that these are people that are hungry and they've been traveling and they're exhausted. And even though they were idol worshippers, but deep down there's in the neshama and they're human beings. And it touched him in his heart, and that's why he sprang into action. Vayar vayaretz l'krosam. Very often, vayar is superficial. For example, the Chumash says, I've said this many times, when the brothers plotted to kill Yosef, and then Yosef went to see the brothers, so it says, Vayiro also merachok. They saw him from the distance, and they plotted to kill him. That means to say, when you see somebody up front, even if you don't like the person, even if they didn't like, but he's their brother, how in the world could they plot to murder him? But they didn't see him. Visually they saw their eye, the nerves in their eyes were stirred. But they didn't really see Yosef. They saw merachok. They were distant from him. They didn't see the inner Yosef. They were angry about this and that tinus and Yosef. But they didn't see the essential Yosef. And therefore, that allowed them not to plot to kill Yosef. The Chumash says in Devarim, in the end of Devarim, Kiseitze, Lo sira shor achicha. You shouldn't see your friend's ox nidachim, and he's wandering, he's lost. V'salamta mehem, and you. The salamta Rashi says means to close your eyes. This is a hashavas aveda. If you see that there's an axe walking down the street, don't close your eyes. Hashev teshivim l'acheicha. You have to return it. So the question, what do you mean, don't close your eyes? That's a joke. There's you know how big an ox is? An ox is walking down the street. So the person says, I didn't see the ox. That's like the kid, you play hide and seek. Where's dad here? Where's that? You know, oh, here he is. What do you mean, don't close your eyes? So what it means, doesn't mean you should make believe and put on blinders on your eyes. It means that don't close the connection between your eyes and the heart. You can see it, but it doesn't move you. You don't think about the fact that this is an expensive animal. Somebody is having enormous pain, that he lost his ox or whatever the animal is. And therefore you should be excited to have an opportunity and inspired to want to return. And instead you close your eyes and say, it's none of my business. I don't want to get involved. That's Mrs. Salamta. It says, Gosira, don't see it, meaning the seeing, the visual seeing, and in the end, though, it's not the second type of seeing because of salamta, because you close your eyes. So when we think about what's going on in Israel, and we read it in the paper, so we know what happened, we watch the videos, but it's not enough that we see it on paper. Or that we see a video of what's happening, and you see the bombs going off, and you see the people talking. It has to touch us in our hearts. It has to be vayar vayaretz. We have to be inspired to run, to do whatever we can, to turn over the world. You know, in Tehillim, we say every day, we've been saying the Tehillim, Eila v'recha ve'ela v'asusim v'anachta b'shem Hashem Elokeinu naskir. They have their chariots, and they have their horses. But we are able to call out the name of Hashem, which is to say, you know, chariots, they look, in the olden days, that was a sign of power. Today, it's not just chariots, it's guided missiles, and it's warplanes, and all sorts of technology. So, Hamas and all the terrorist organizations, and Iran and Hezbollah, they're very powerful, nuclear bombs, nuclear weapons. So it's overwhelming. What are we going to do? We pull out our hair. But the answer is, hey, they've got their chariots and their horses. Big deal. The Ribono Shalom can take all of that and turn it upside down in a second and flip it and destroy it. So our weapon is that we have to certainly fight them on their own terms, and the Israeli army is doing that every day. But we're not operating the tanks, and we're not operating we're not going into the tunnels and all those things. But we're sitting here in America. But what we have to do is we have to be able to connect to the Ribono Shalom and cry out to the Ribono Shalom. And Vayar, you know, they have in pictures in many places. There's pictures of the hostages. You have to look at those pictures. There's the little boys and girls, 3-4 years old. We should be crying when we look at those pictures. But if we're not, it's because it's the first Vayar, but not the second. We see it, but it doesn't touch us. It doesn't move us. So we have to be like Avraham Avinu. He saw the people coming. He didn't just look at them. But Ayar v'yaretz, he was, and he went. Look what he did. He made a whole feast for them, and he slaughtered animals. He wanted each one to have their own tongue. He treated them like royalty. So certainly, those were people. They weren't going to die if Avraham didn't do that. Here we have our brothers and sisters in Eretz Yisrael. The suffering is enormous. The tragedy. Every single soldier that's killed. It's a lifelong tragedy besides for the tragedy for the soldier, but for the soldier's family, if it's a spouse or children or parents or brothers and sisters, it's enormous, the tragedy. So we have to feel it in our heart, and when we're walking in the street, we should be davening. We should be davening before we go to sleep, and we should be davening when we're sitting in shul. And we should be thinking about them 24 hours a day. The people that have children that were kidnapped, or relatives that were kidnapped, they don't stop thinking about it for 1 second. So when we go about our own things, and we're busy with this and with that, we're misalem. That's the phrase that the Torah says by Hashavas Aveda. You shouldn't be able to ignore it. You can't close your eyes. It should be on our minds and hearts all day long. When we say Tehillim, we say Acheinu kol beis Yisrael hanasunim b'tzar v'shivya. What a powerful and beautiful prayer. Acheinu kol beis Yisrael, our brothers, all the brothers and sisters of Klal Yisrael, hanasunim b'tzara v'shivya, who are in crisis and who are in captivity. It's mamish talking to us. Hamakam Yerachim Aleim. We ask the Kadosh Baruch Hamakam. Hamakam means He's the place. It means the whole world is encompassed in the Rebbeinu Shem. The Rebbeinu Shem created all of reality, so He's the one to turn to. But the tefillah is powerful when it's Acheinu, when we feel it's our brothers. If you don't feel it's your brother, it's somebody, I don't know who they are. There's somebody in Israel. I know there's a big problem going on. No, it has to be Acheinu. And the truth is, the problem is spreading to America too. We're not insulated and isolated. It's on the college campuses, and it's in the streets, in Manhattan and in other cities, and there's so much turmoil. So we're also directly affected with it, and we're pretending if we think that it doesn't affect us. But we need to be thinking about it all the time. It's not enough vayar that we see it with our eyes. It has to be vayar v'yaretz. We have to spring into action, and we have to do better. If there are people still dying, if the hostages are still in captivity, we're not doing enough on our ends. We have to try harder. And let us hope that Amir Tzashem, the Rebbeinu Shalom, will answer our tefillos, and this war should come to an end quickly, and Hamas should be completely eradicated, not with a pause and a ceasefire and these things. They need to be totally destroyed. The evil has to be destroyed so that it shouldn't happen again. And in Mitzvah Shem, the hostages should be returned to their loved ones today, not tomorrow or in 2 weeks or 2 years. Immediately. That's what we should be davening for. And Hamas should be eradicated immediately. In Mitzvah Shem, let us hope that we'll see Yeshuos and the Chamos for all of Klal Yisrael. Thank you for listening. I wish everyone should have, as best as possible, a good Shabbos.